Hello and welcome to our Medallion Racing sponsored preview of the stakes on Stephen Foster Night. I'm Peter Thomas Fornital, and I'm in the Brooklyn bunker, but I'm not your host. I get to hand off that duty tonight to the always fabulous Michelle Yu, who will introduce first. Michelle, how are things?
Oh, very, very good, Pete. I just flew in from Canterbury, and boy, are my arms tired.
Oh, but I'm bumped. Did you have as much fun as it was looking like on TV? It looks like a nice little plan out there.
Oh, yeah. You know me. I have fun pretty much anywhere I go. There was a great dive bar to visit afterwards, which made it even better. But fantastic night of racing. I got to say, Canterbury has some kick butt fans out there. They are really, really cool and really fun.
Now, before I properly pass the baton to you, I will introduce our other two guests. First, the man in the square beneath me. You know him from, a lot of things. He's the designer of this fabulous shirt I'm wearing. Michelle, I decided every time we work together, one of us needs to wear this shirt. And when I say this shirt, I mean this specific shirt. So there you go. You also might know him from his fantastic solo venture podcast, if you will, JK+1. New episode just dropped with Kendrick Carmouche. Tops on my thing to listen to. Gonna put that on for my run after we get off the airwaves here. JK, great to have you. And how are things doing, my friend? How much fun was it to get Kendrick rocking and rolling?
Yeah, Kendrick was awesome. He was, he's always awesome, right? I think I started off by saying good luck not smiling throughout this entire hour and a half. He's just so funny. We talked about a lot of good stuff. Talked about his ankle, the recovery, the first grade one, growing up in Louisiana. And I got him to tell the story firsthand about the infamous fog story from his father. If you've never heard that story, it is one of the greatest stories in racing. I am a little bit nervous about this podcast because I'm a big believer in peaks and valleys when you're betting sports and even when you're looking at racing. And Michelle was very nice to me last night on TV. So if that was the peak, I'm assuming that this is going to be the valley.
Get ready.
JK, I tried to turn over a new leaf.
We'll see.
I feel like I've been really brutal to JK in the past, and I just felt like I should probably start being nice to him sometimes.
Sometimes I like how you threw in the sometimes there.
Keeps him on his toes.
Our fourth and final panel. You just heard his voice. He's coming to us from Medallion Racing, brings a fantastic industry perspective, but at his core, he's a horse player, just like we are, and I always value his insight tremendously. From Medallion, Philip Shelton. Philip, how are things?
Good. Getting ready for a couple of big weeks coming up, so it's we got a big weekend back in the home state of Kentucky. That's not the Derby, so we always like to celebrate those weekends.
No doubt about it. Hey, if we have time at the end of the show, maybe we can take a few questions. Feel free to put them in through whatever method you are viewing this from, and we'll get to as many of those as we can, or maybe I can button up some of them after the fact. But now I get to be a guest. This is like a vacation for me. We're back to the fantastic Michelle Yu.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Well, let's jump right into it. What we're going to handicap here are the 6 stakes races at the back end of the Stephen Foster card. It does encompass an all stakes pick 6. So that's really exciting. We definitely want to get some price horses, and I'm sure JK's got a favorite or 5 or 6 to throw at us as well. Hopefully we don't have to single anywhere, but I'm not the best pick 6 player because I don't believe in singles, but I'm sure we'll be able to weasel something out. So we're going to kick it off in race number 7, and that's going to be the War Chant. It is for strictly 3-year-olds going 1 mile on the turf course. And Pete, I'm going to start with you because you're the prettiest.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's not just the shirt. I really like the 5 Royal Prince in this spot. It just makes a lot of sense to me on the body of work, a consistent performer. I felt like was chasing a loose winner through a speed favoring flow the last day. Maybe better with a stronger gallop, being able to sit and pounce. I just felt like was better than looked at the American turf because of the trip, and that's probably the best bit of form on offer here. I definitely want Royal Prince on tickets. And how about Helium to be at least a backup somewhere? Supposed to be better on turf, I think, being by Ironicus out of a dam who's true to try the sod, have one on it. I'd like to see an off-the-pace run this time from that one. This is not a lockup race by any means, though. There's plenty who could win. I can tell a little bit of a story about the 4 Dynamite. Felt like moved into a hot pace in the aforementioned American turf. Flopped on Poly 2 back, but fits on the previous run. The best 3 runs by far are all on Lasix, which gives me pause. But if a big enough price, I'll include. I like it 584 to kick things off.
My top pick is actually Helium in here, Pete. And talking about Dynamite, you can look at it 2 ways, right? You can say his best starts were the ones on Lasix. You can also say they were against a little bit lesser company. We're talking about ungraded stakes over at Houston and the fairgrounds. So it could have just been the friends that he was keeping and not necessarily the Lasix situation. So unfortunately, with the Lasix being spotty around the country, we have to kind of pick and choose which one is it. But in this particular instance, I do think he's intriguing because it could have just been the foes that he was facing. So maybe that'll help him out today. JK, how about you? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, I really like Helium. I'll quote our good friend of the network and one of the best horse players, if not the best horse player I've ever been around, and that's Paul Matisse. One of the things he kind of taught me was that when a dirt horse shows that toughness to be able to perform on the dirt, and they have turf pedigree and can run on the turf, they're really dangerous types. And that's how I feel about Helium. I mean, I never liked Helium at all this entire year. He was actually a punchline of a lot of jokes, but I do feel like getting to the turf is going to help him quite a bit. He's forwardly placed and he's shown that toughness. He's a half the Mighty Scarlet who was a runner that could perform on the turf. And so I'm going to build a lot of things around Helium. I'm kind of against Next. I just, Wesley Ward, close your ears. I kind of have this thing where I fade Wesley's horses going 2 turns, not because I don't think he's capable. It's because I think he's always overbet. And so in a situation like that where I can try to beat him, it's not a 2-year-old, I try. But Next is a little bit concerning. And the other one I'll mention on the inside is the one at Credit. I thought a Credit ran extremely well last time. I love tactical horses that are drawn inside. They can get in and out of holes. They can get their position moving forward. They can save ground all the way around there. And I thought a Credit ran well last time. So I'm going to build most of my tickets around Helium and a Credit, especially this pick 6. And like you mentioned, Michelle, it isn't all stakes, but it's also a mandatory payout.
We like mandatory payouts. Philip, do you have anything to add to all the good horses we already talked about?
Now, I would basically be leaning pretty heavily on Helium. It feels like, from a class perspective, he's got the most class. He's probably just the fastest horse, and he might be getting on the preferred surface. His first 2 wins were on synthetic up at Woodbine, and then what felt like a fluky performance in the Tampa Bay Derby. Yeah, I don't think he actually ran that bad in the Kentucky Derby. Probably a little closer to the pace. I think a Credit was really interesting, and to me, I think in this race, it's very interesting to see where the money's going to go. Like Helium 7-2 on the morning line. I would think he is going to go shorter than that. I think he could go quite a bit shorter than that. I think he could be like 2-1 or 8-5 even. So from a pick 6 perspective, I'd be heavily weighting him. If, I could get a little interested in Dynamite. If you like Royal Prince, you almost have to like him. He's going to be a way bigger price. So, to me, it's probably Helium and the majority of any multis with, and it would be a spread after that if, on a backup ticket or a B ticket.
All right. So it sounds like Helium can either set us up for a good day or take the wind out of our sails right from the get-go. Turning the page to race number 8, going to be a 6 furlong affair here. The Debutante for fillies, obviously, going 6 furlongs. And Philip, since you got the shaft end of the last race going last, I'm going to let you go first this time so you can take all of the thunder away from JK.
Yeah, this is a really interesting race, I think. These 2-year-old races always are as you get ready, you would have to think the winner of this is going to Saratoga. And you get the inside horse that's coming from Lone Star. Felt like maybe an opportunity. They just wanted to get a gun runner a win early. It's, Winchell they own gun runner. Obviously Asmussen trained gun runner. But from a buyer perspective, ran at 81, which is significantly higher than anything in this race. For me, I actually like the other Asmussen, Tis Plenty. I like horses with more experience at this point. They're all more or less facing winners for the first time, but horses that have 2 runs, I just kind of favor them. I think I liked the way she ran last time out, where she basically got challenged and then kind of rebroke and ended up pulling away late. I love Speightstown's been really good to us at TaylorMade, and I like her. I think I could use the same theory for Cartel Queen from your old buddy Tom Amos. visually, her last run was incredibly impressive. Like she just split horses and, looked like everybody was stuck in mud. So I would be spreading in a pick six, but those would be the two I would be focusing, my money on. I think there's a lot of obvious horses, including the horse that beat Tiz Plenty, first out that, I wouldn't be shocked if they won.
Catch us if you can, that for Brett Calhoun, the one we're talking about there. JK, I will go to you. What do you like for these 2-year-old fillies?
Yeah, a lot of times in these races, it's hard because you're worried that horses might jump up and bite you because they're improving. They've obviously only had one run. You can lean on speed figures, but you're a little bit nervous because what if it was the wrong number? You don't have anything to really base it off of. With that being said, I'm going to get skinny in this race. I love the 8 on the 1s and 2s. A great name by my friend Deuce Greathouse. Source ran extremely well last time. I think probably wasn't wide around there, but did lose a little bit of ground on the turn. And the figure I think will continue to improve. And then I'm going to use the gun runner as well on the inside for Steve. That horse ran well, ran fast, did it the right way forward. Asmussen's one of those guys that they don't just run well first out and then go away. They continue to improve and they typically continue to have careers moving forward. So those are the two that I'm going to build things around. I was a little bit concerned playing the jockey musical chairs game with Ricardo taking the other one, but then I thought about it more and realized that Ricardo's not taking off a highly brought horse after his experiences with Matoli and all the other good horses they have. So I don't think that really had anything to do with it in that situation. So I'm going to just use the 1 and the 8, with the 8 being my top choice.
PTF.
This plan backfired completely, Michelle. He stole my thunder. Those were the two I was going to mention. I felt like the 8 was super interesting. That was a good number on debut. And we talked about Tiz Plenty has come back to win since. I feel like on the 1s and 2s has shown the ability to pass horses, which I like. And just looking at the work tab, seems to have trained forwardly. I expect improvement for this Norm Cassie runner. And then on the figures, they've all got to improve to beat the 1. As Jacob pointed out, Wicked Halo, the 3rd from the win, came back to run 9 points better on the buyer scale. Super live for Asmussen. 8-1 for me as well.
I kind of like Behave Virginia in there that no one mentioned for Kenny McPeak. Broke the maiden on debut, drew away by 5 right there at Churchill Downs. I know with a wet fast track, it can be very speed favoring, and she did go to the front, but Kenny McPeak does a good job with his horses, and I think this horse has worked forwardly since. So I wouldn't be afraid to include her off my ticket, and I would be scared to leave her off. Well, at least I got nods. All right. Moving on.
I can't argue with any of that.
I was waiting for someone to argue, but good. All right.
I'm not poking the bear. I can assure you that.
Yeah. Well, and I think like this is a really, if you just take JK and you just look at the pick six sequence as a whole, right, you're going to have some pretty short races later on, possibly with Maxfield. You've got the turf race where it looks like, it could be some like at Hob Brown or Set Piece that are going to be pretty short. So just, where do you want to get skinny and where do you want to, and I would agree, like on the 1s and 2s might be the best horse, like a month from now, 6 months from now, you might look back and say, hey, this filly ran a 78 first time out, which is incredibly high for an early season 2-year-old runner. And, might be the best horse. So it's, I think that's what makes all of this, especially with a 20-cent, it's a mandatory payout, is just how do you really structure your ticket and where do you choose to really shorten up and where do you want to try to find a price somewhere? Because, on the 1s and 2s, they're obviously going to be, pretty short. She should go favorite, I would think.
All right, flipping ahead to race number 9, the Bashford Manor, grade 3 here. So this is the boys version. These are 2-year-old boys. Just from a nameplate alone, we all have to like vodka and water, right? I mean,
Hold the water.
Even if he's a maiden in here, I feel like vodka and water just has the right name to get it done. And he's got the right connections with Steve Asmussen in here. I like the fact that he's already been second in a stake. Unfortunately, I don't like the fact that he's surrounded that effort with 2 seconds in maiden special weights because that's like leaning towards the pack animal status. But I thought he was really interesting. I will let JK go first this time.
Yeah, this is one of those races like Philip was talking about, this whole sequence to me, these 6 races about how am I going to play this ticket? I'm going to spread in here. I'm going to use vodka water defensively just because it's Asmussen. And the horse has at least shown some ability, but like Michelle mentioned, I'm not really convinced the horse wants to win. I'm going to use the 2 Lansdowne. I thought that horse was pretty impressive on debut. That horse knocked me out of a pick 5, so I remembered it pretty clearly. Horse has been working with some pretty nice horses as well, so I want to use that. I'm going to use Tapped Off, who got a nice little number at Churchill.
So
I think Glacial.
1, 2, 3, and 4 so far. Keep going, JK. So good.
No, I'm spreading here. I mean, look, when I make this large pick 6 wager, these are horses I'm going to be using. The 4 Glacial is another one. I think this is probably the most likely winner. And we talked about Deuce Greathouse owning earlier on the 1s and 2s. He bought Glacial, so a big night for him, rooting for him. I think Glacial has a shot in here as well. He ran well, excuse me. So I'm gonna kind of focus on those horses. This is a tough race for me. I don't have anything I can really lean on. There's no big figure edge, so I'll be spreading, but I'll make Glacial my top choice.
All right. Anyone like the 9 Red Run? No one?
I didn't have on my top line. Was worried about the pace setup. When you see a horse that won from right on, and then 8 runners appear to be faster early, it's tough for me to see the trip.
All right. I will.
You want to fight tonight? I like it.
Hey, I just got to make it interesting. There's no crowd to feed off of. I just got to entertain myself. Philip, what do you think about the Bashford Manor?
Yeah, so we actually own, well, I say we, some of the Medallion owners, the guys in our partnership, we don't buy colts, as we've talked about in some of the previous shows, but we actually, some of our guys ponied up and we bought this horse privately after his first race.
Vodka and water we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a weird, without getting too much into the specifics, but in one of his previous races, not his last race, but one of the previous 2, the winner actually is, the race is in dispute. So he's actually considered the winner of one of the first 2, which is why he can't run back in a maiden, which is just a weird, it's a Kentucky thing. And it's,
that's not fair. You should be allowed to until it's
unfortunately, it's like the worst because we didn't get the money and we're considered a winner. So 8 months from now, it's probably going to get overturned and we're not going to get the money and we've missed the opportunity to run in a maiden forever. But it's just, it is what it is.
You can take him to another state.
I think we even explored that option and they said no. What I would say about Vodka and Water is he's a horse that's better. He looks like he wants to run further and he wants to settle into his stride. He caught an absolute flyer out of the gate last time and everyone else was a little bit slow. And I think Ricardo got off the rail and just said, hey, I'm going to try to let somebody go in front of me. I'm going to sit second or third outside. And what ended up happening was Glacial came right up the rail and we got stuck sandwiched in between 2 horses, which is just not the trip that we wanted. And I don't know if that's, I'll leave the jockey decisions to Steve, but I'm not surprised that they were not happy afterwards. So I'm not surprised that we didn't keep Ricardo. Unfortunately, we drew the rail again and I don't really know what kind of trip we're going to get. The 2 obviously has speed. The 3's got speed. The 4 has a bunch of speed and maybe with a better break is going to go forward. From a betting perspective, I couldn't tell you the last time I've seen a Dallas Stewart horse win in May of their 2-year-old year. And that it's like if an Ian Wilkes horse wins first out, I'm like, oh shit, this thing must be pretty good. So I will definitely be including that horse. I'll play Vodka and Water Glacial. And I would be more of a JK. This feels like a race to spread. Todd's 2-year-olds have been running really good right now. That horse wouldn't beat me. And Red Run wouldn't beat me either. Maybe it was the slop that the horse handled, but if there is a bunch of speed, this horse gun runner out of a Tappet mare, should handle the stretch out and distance just fine.
And not to go down this path, but I think it's also important to note with the 8 Double Thunder, that horse won first out at Monmouth, and we know that at Monmouth you're not using the crop. So, I think that shows a lot of the horse's talent and maturity to be able to kind of win under those circumstances.
Yeah.
All right.
Completely agree.
I mean, some instances, I don't know. If you're on the front end, everyone behind you is the one they're lacking getting whipped to try to catch up. If you're on the lead, it's kind of like, you're just going to stay there.
It's funny. I mean, I've actually looked at it I haven't played a lot of Monmouth, but I've actually looked at it conversely that on the front end, they're the ones that are more tired and need the encouragement more than the ones that are coming from off. But I've never sat on horseback, so I'll defer. But that's where my brain has been.
I haven't. I mean, I've been at Monmouth and played the last 2 Saturdays, and I get the theories that everybody's putting forward, but I haven't studied it properly. But in my anecdotal, like watching and betting of both those cards, full card, I haven't seen like any type of whip crop bias, if you will. But we're going to have really good data soon, and this is something that maybe we'll have somebody dive into and write an article about who studies this kind of stuff about like how much closing is supposed to take place, and we'll bring some data to the party and talk about this one a little bit more. JK stole my horse again, Michelle. I'm mad at him. I like Glacial here.
Let's have a pity party.
Break out the world's smallest.
There's only like 3 other horses we haven't talked about. Can you just pick one of those, Pete?
Well, I've got 2 I want to talk about.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have too much to add about Glacial. Obviously, I think I like a little bit more than the tepid votes from the rest of the panel, but I like the looks of that work tab since, and I just like the first race and feels like a horse that should get a great trip and improve. I'll give a little count in this race, Michelle, to the filly, number 11. She's got attitude. I think that was a really good race on debut. Twilight Gleaming back in second, serious racehorse. I feel like with a different ride wins it, Ascot. And then I did a little poking around, hollered at our friend Sean Borman about what figure he had for that 4.5 race, and he had it a lot faster than Timeform. He had it as a 70 on the buyer scale. I feel like you can make plenty of excuses for the sloppy stakes try where she didn't break and was wide. This is a horse that should be double digits and might just be live.
All right. I like it. We have a little bit of a price to throw into there and an obvious spread race. So let's flip the page again. Race number 10, the grade 2 Wise Dan, one of my favorite horses of all time, going a mile and a 16th. Does anyone want to tell me their favorite Wise Dan memory?
Oh my God! What wasn't there the one on Foster night with the
where he got pushed into the bush?
He like got knocked over the rail and came back and still won the race. I think I've got to go with that one.
I love that one. Jake, do you have a Wise Dan memory?
I loved his Breeders' Cup, where he beat Animal Kingdom, right? Animal Kingdom came running. That was I remember that one quite a bit.
Oh, I was there on the. That's my favorite because I was standing there with Charlie, and like when he won, we just started like jumping up and down and hugging and spinning all around. It was awesome. And also, right now, JK, it looks like you have kitty cat ears coming out of your hair.
With the desk
headband, yeah. Philip, do you have a favorite Wise Dan memory?
Yeah, I would say like that Breeders' Cup. He was just such a cool horse because he really just danced every dance. I think the one thing that probably gets forgotten about him a lot, how good he was on dirt. I mean, he was like a very good dirt horse, and it just turned out he was world class on the grass. The one thing I really remember was back when Keeneland had the synthetic, and I just had in general, I'm like the anti-JK. I want to try to find any reason to not bet the favorite, no matter how silly that feels sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when he ran on the synthetic and got beat by Silver Max, who was a Roman's horse, because it
was raining, right? Wasn't it raining?
Oh,
yeah.
It was like, and it was in October at Keeneland where it just, it can be a bog. And I almost remember that one more than anything, except the Breeders' Cup, because I just hammered him just straight over top of like Animal Kingdom and one other horse. And at that point in time, it was one of the biggest like exactas I'd ever hit. But I thought he couldn't lose, and it was one I didn't outsmart myself and get in a bunch of multis and then look back and say, oh, my strongest opinion aired and I won 0.
Oh, I love it. All right, so let's look at the Wise Dan right here. I think you guys kind of mentioned the main players earlier, Set Piece and some like it Hot Brown. Philip, I'm going to let you start here to see if you have anything additional to add to those 2 that we've mentioned.
I mean, I think it's pretty tough, in my opinion, to get past Set Piece. I thought his last 2 races were really good. His race at Turfway before that got Trump Visitant, ran second in the Ali Sheba. Do I love the style of coming from way, way, way off in a race where some like a Hot Brown might get out to the lead and control it? Maybe not. If I had to get past the main 2, I could make a case for Ride a Comet. I think last time was maybe a little bit closer to the pace, and a mile and 1/8 might just be too far for that horse. Cutting back in distance is probably a positive. But to me, I really want a lot of Set Piece, and I'll probably play some like an Hot Brown defensively just from a pure pace perspective, because that would be my biggest concern is just some like a Hot Brown could get loose. And, he obviously has proven that he, on his day is plenty good enough to win this.
PTF.
I don't have much to add. I feel like I know looking at figures that Set Piece and some like at Hot Brown don't have like a particularly dominant advantage. But when I run this race in my head, I feel like I either have to get crazy spready or just play it for those two to lock it up. And I think that's what I'm going to do with some like at Hot Brown projecting to be the best speed and Set Piece projecting to be the best closer. Anybody on the panel who has a backup, I'd probably throw them in based on that. But I'm pretty simple in this spot.
JK?
Yeah, I mean, Set Piece seems to have kind of figured it out. He's been one of those horses that let you down about 7 times, and then now he's kind of seeing the ball go through the hoop. I mean, I think he'll end up getting a good trip on the inside, saving ground as well. I do think that he probably likes a little cut in the ground. His last 2 wins came on a surface that had a little bit of cut, so maybe there is something if you're trying to fade the favorite in there. We talked about something like at Hot Brown. I've always liked that horse. I'll be using. And the other horse I'm going to use is the 10 In Love. This horse has shown some versatility, coming from way out of it, being a little bit closer. The outside post isn't like my favorite situation because he's not that fast early, but I'm hopeful he can get over, save a little bit of ground. But I do think In Love makes sense as well. I think Set Piece is the most likely winner, but this race feels like, Michelle, you'll remember last night we saw with TD Dance. Feels like one of those situations where Flo's going to be the best, but the horse's style is going to be put him in a situation where he has to get lucky and not get stopped. And that's a concern.
I think something like a Hot Brown's the horse to beat in there over Set Piece. And I love where you're going with In Love. I think that horse has a serious chance. I looked at him and Kentucky Ghost both really hard. And I love a nice little turn back in distance, which is what we get with In Love. So I'm going to include him on my ticket.
I could also see him working on I know you don't like the outside post, but he's got good tactical speed. Mm-hmm. He could end up getting a pretty good trip if he doesn't get stuck too wide. I think like an interesting question, for me to you guys is just in a race like this where it feels like the 2 logical horses, and especially talking about it from a pick 6 perspective, I don't want to say it's 90%, but a lot of the tickets are going to be mainly using those 2. And what I try to, whenever I play a pick 6, and I play like the Belmont dollar pick 6 pretty frequently, and I play the carryover 100% of the time. I don't love the 20-cent payouts. I play mandatory payouts, but even you look at like Santa Anita this weekend, there were a couple of big price horses, only a couple favorites only paid $500. So it's how do you create value? And I think a race like this, if you just really like someone like Hot Brown, you said, hey, he is going to get the trip. He's going to get loose on the lead. I think that it could be a way for somebody to create a ton of extra value is just picking one of the 2 and just saying, hey, I'm basically betting a $500 win bet on this horse as opposed to, spreading and then you just dilute yourself down. I don't know what your all's thoughts on that is. I just, in a sequence that feels like it could be kind of chalky, maybe you just pound it a couple extra times and single here.
Oh, yeah, I'm allergic to that word. It makes me feel itchy.
JK's a big believer in that. I'll let you make the case that you've made before, Jonathan.
JK, talk about being itchy.
Yeah, I'm itchy. I mean, I think that look, I don't have any steadfast rules when it comes to, I'm not playing a sequence if I don't single. I don't hit the all button. That's kind of a rule. But one thing I'll say is that I let the sequence dictate how I'm going to attack certain races. If I can't get aggressive and have an opinion in other races, then I would try to formulate an opinion in this race, and I would try to get skinny with Set Piece and something like a Hot Brown. But my opinions kind of lay elsewhere, so I'm okay casting a wider net here. I think the biggest problem is that if you're just playing a caveman ticket, then you're not doing yourself any justice, and you're kind of putting yourself behind the 8 ball. I think you need to, if you really like Set Piece and something like a Hot Brown, you need to have more money through them than you do on horses like Hierarchy, who I'm going to use. Kentucky Ghost, who I think maybe wants longer, but I'm not going to use them the same as I'm using some like a Hot Brown and Set Piece, and also In Love. And In Love will be kind of in that top tier line for me too. So, it's the answer to your question to me, Philip, is what are your opinions on the other 5 races? And that's how you make the decision. That's what's best in this leg.
Yeah, I know that's something we've talked about too, and I know we talked about it at both of or definitely the Breeders' Cup live event. But I think that's a great thing when you look at, and it doesn't just apply to pick 6s; it's really any multi race. But it's It's where is your opinion, and then how strongly are you playing your opinion? And if you're playing one ticket, you're playing everybody at equal weight. That is an advantage of the 20-cent ticket, is you can really, you can play a bunch of tickets that cost $4 to $15 that really play your opinion, and then have something that's a little bigger, that's more spread. That's something I even talked to like a bunch of our investors about that are like, what about this? And I'm like, that ultimately is the crux of all handicapping, right? Is you want to play your opinion, not play who might win at a big price at equal weight as the 8-5 favorite, who's the most likely winner. And sometimes you're just forced if your budget, like, for me on $1, on a carryover, if I know, hey, I'm going to put $500 into this sequence, I might play a spread ticket at like $350 and then play a couple smaller tickets with my opinions. But sometimes your budget forces your hand a little bit. And maybe that's where you would say, hey, maybe you're better off just not playing that sequence altogether.
It's typically budget and time, or it's funny. Budget restraints and time restraints typically lead to bad horseplay. And you got to try. I mean, I know that sometimes. Yeah, exactly. I think so. I think that I told you peaks and valleys. I think that if you can avoid one of those being a problem for you, you're put yourself in a much better situation. So take the time and create more tickets. And sometimes it ends up being cheaper if you don't caveman. It's actually cheaper that way. So
almost always.
That would, yeah, exactly.
But I think Philip hit the key point. I mean, Mike Maloney, if you take one thing away from Mike Maloney's book, Betting with an Edge, just ignore the co-author. He did nothing but drag the project down. But there's some great stuff in there, including the idea that what you're doing when you're writing these bets is trying to articulate your opinion as accurately as possible. And you never think, even in some of these races where we talk about it and they're spread races, it's very rare that it's a spread race where you like at their odds, all horses equally relative to their price. To be able to find where your opinion is, even within a spread race, then you're bringing it up to the next level, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think JK said something really interesting. We did our Breeders' Cup one, and he was like, you should spend as much time compiling your bets as you do actually handicapping the races. And I'd be the first person to say, like, I'm 100% guilty of either betting a sequence I shouldn't bet based on my budget because I don't get to play it the way that I want to play it, or just running, I've got a 19-month-old, I got work, I got all these things, and it's like just sitting down and saying, oh, man, the late pick 4 goes off in 4 minutes. I've looked at the sequence. Let me just throw together a ticket. And that occasionally does win, but it's very rare that wins. And it doesn't, a lot of times it wins and it pays, I bet $150 ticket and it pays $84. And my wife just laughs at me.
I'm at the last one. I'm like, ooh, I looked at those races and I don't even pull out my PPs. I'm like, oh yeah, I liked that name. I'm pretty sure I liked that horse. And like, I'll play that way. And then I'll be like, oh man, I forgot the horse that I really liked.
Yeah, I think they have a word for that. It's called degenerate, but I fall right in that category.
JK's got the right shirt on.
I was going to say I need a shirt that says that. Does your shirt say degenerate?
Oh, we'll send you one. Degenerate horse player.
I need that.
InTheMoneyPodcast.com/old smoke, but you don't have to buy one, Michelle. We'll send you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll make it into a dress.
Oh, fantastic.
I'll make it V-necked. We'll be awesome.
We'll discuss your specifications.
There we go.
I actually got my friend Kurt at Old Smoke to make me one in Austin size, and Austin got himself dressed to go to school one day, and I almost let him do it, but I felt like it would backfire.
I would
totally sent out of school. You don't think that would sit well with the ex-wife?
Oh, I'm not worried about the school. I was worried about the yeah, exactly.
Do you know Olivia went to school one day with a shirt that said, "I'm not milk drunk, I'm tit-faced."
Oh my God. Always raising the discourse, Michelle. Always raising the discourse.
You can't reach. You don't know what it says. All right. Flipping forward, the feature race on the card. The whole reason that we're talking about the program really is because of the grade 2. Stephen Foster, 9 furlongs. Grade 2. So sad. I was so sad it's a grade 2 when I saw that. I keep forgetting that it's not a grade 1 anymore. Okay. So obviously the horse everyone wants to talk about is going to be Maxfield. Do we say single or do we spread? Philip.
I mean, I would be playing 90% of my money through Maxfield, and I could get a little interested in a horse like Sprawl. I think is going to is going to love the distance. I could see Chest Chief maybe didn't get the right kind of trip last time. I just don't know if he's good enough. But to me, it's Maxfield's race to lose if he runs. The one thing you had a big question mark before the last race was just how fast is he? From a numbers visually, he was always very impressive, but he just didn't feel like he was way faster than everybody else. And then last time, he basically just dusted what would be the second, third, favorites in this race. He can make his own trip. He's 3 for 3 at Churchill. To me, he feels like the most logical winner on the whole card. And I wouldn't try to spend a lot of money trying to beat him.
All right. I kind of like Silver Dust. I don't think anyone else is going to agree with me, but I think he's really interesting. He was third in the Stephen Foster last year. Maybe he could be forwardly placed. He's coming in a little fresh, and I love Brett Calhoun. PTF.
Maxfield certainly deserves to be the beginning of the conversation and could be the end of the conversation. Outside of that Santa Anita handicap, a day he was easy to oppose, the horse has just been outstanding. Loves the home cooking. The barn is flying. Should get a great trip. But I will run a backup line, and I'm glad you mentioned me before, JK, because I think this might be one that he would mention too. A horse we've talked about a ton on the podcast, number 6, Warriors Charge, for our friends at 10 Strike Racing. 10 Strike Racing, our favorite non-commercial racing partnership. Medallion, of course, being our favorite racing partnership. But Warriors Charge, it's just very easy to toss that effort in the Sexton. I think our resident DG meteorologist, Marshall Sterling, said it was biblical that day at Lone Star, and that sounds about right. I think that race can just be safely ignored. You take that out, and you got a horse that has some back form, who could be loose and maybe a little bit disrespected by the other riders. The recent race is not looking so hot. I have not reached out to connections to see how the horse is doing, but I would imagine that Ma Bell Kinchin over there has. He's got every trainer basically in the country on speed dial at this point. Curious to hear if he's got any intel.
No, I didn't. I do have a picture of a Warriors Charge though that I just pulled off the wall.
You didn't call Brad Cox for this show?
No. I save those for babies, typically. Look, here's the thing. I think Maxfield obviously is the most likely winner, and he ran extremely well last time. He's one of those horses that's kind of hard for me to trust a little bit, just because his style. I prefer my 3 to 5 shots to be more forward, and so that just makes me a little bit nervous. But look, he's likely going to win this race. I am a card carrying member of the Warriors Charge fan club. I've always loved this horse, but I do think there is I will have a little backup line on him as well, but for a couple of reasons. One is because he is the speed of the speed, and it's not even close in this race. He had an excuse last time, the weather. He didn't break. It was over at the jump when he broke slow. He likes being out on the front end. He loves a fight. But here's the thing. There's this idea that Warriors Charge might want a mile. I think the longer the better. In fact, I've texted Marshall and Clay 12 times to run him a mile and a quarter, like in the Jockey Club Gold Cup or something. Because to me, when he's one of those horses that goes fast and likes it better, and it's going to take other horses off the bridle. And his best performances were the Preakness at a mile and 3/16, the Oaklawn handicap 2 years ago or a year ago, where he got beat, but he ran extremely well. I think he's going to get brave on the front end going a mile and an eighth. And if Maxfield does what Maxfield's done once before and not run well, I think Warriors Charge could get loose and win.
All right. Very interesting. So at least we're not all just convinced it's going to be single city in that race. The finale at Churchill Downs is going to be the Tepin Stakes, not to be confused with the Tepin that's run in New York, because that's a whole nother race. This one's obviously at Churchill. 1 mile on the turf for 3-year-old fillies. And PTF, I'll let you start.
Yeah, Invincible Gal actually ran in that other Tepin, and now not quite going for the Tepin double, as was beaten a length there. But I think she's really interesting. I've always been a fan. I feel like that comeback race was very useful. Should move forward, I would imagine, for condition reasons in the second start off the layoff, and maybe the best closer in a race that has plenty of pace. Got to mention a couple of others, though. Town Avenger, number 4. I thought ran very well on debut, closing against the flow. The distance is a question mark, but I'm inclined to use
Empire Maker on the bottom side.
Yeah, should handle on the blood. I like the Bullet 5 Furlong work since. And then Navratilova, a name I love, out of Center Court, has run some nice races. Obviously, the stretch out huge question, but looking at the blood here, Medallion d'Oro and Smart Strike, she could be legit at a price, an all or nothing type. We'll wait till Saturday night to see if it's an ace for Navratilova or a double fault.
Zing. JK.
I see what you did there, Pete. You didn't think I knew a little bit about tennis. I used to play tennis on Dreamcast, and nobody could see me. So if anybody's got a Dreamcast and you want this work, let me know. I'm still good at it. This is a spread. I'm gonna not too spready here. I'm gonna kind of go towards the outside.
Kind of spread. It's like a schmear.
Yeah, it's a little bit, just like a piece of, like a little peanut butter toast. I'm gonna use the 10 new boss who I thought has run well, has nice speed figures, and has this quicken number that I like to do. We're trying to identify how quickly they can kind of quicken up and the stretch outs. I'm not crazy about stretch outs when they're drawn outside, but this horse has shown the ability to go long before. And then the 12 Barista, I absolutely love. This horse was close to a fast pace last time, and the regret going longer. Michelle, you'll like the little cutback there. And then the 13 Arm Candy. This is another horse that I'm extremely interested in. Got a setup last time, but I can't fault horses for getting setups. I'm not going to single Arm Candy based off of that, but I do think that Arm Candy has some talent, and I can't get away from my girl Toby's heart. I've always loved her since she ran up at Saratoga, and although I'm not convinced she wants to go this far, the fact that they ran her 7 and then they're bringing her back going a mile, it feels like they felt like she ran well enough that day, and so I'm going to use her a little bit as well.
All right, so JK using half of the field. Philip, did you need to add anybody to that?
Yeah, I would just say quickly on Toby's heart, she didn't get a great trip last time. Like we ran third in that race with Candace O, and Toby's heart was 150 to 1, and she just got she was further off the pay. I would have thought stretching out to 7, she would have been closer. I mean, she was almost dead last and didn't have the clearest run through. I'm pretty intrigued by Adventuring. If you look at her first 3 races, she basically they try to get her on the grass. She ran against Will Secret, the horse that won her debut, came back to win. She won. Then she went to Turfway, won pretty easily. Again, Candace O ran third there, and then she came back to run third in a grade 3 in her next start. She went the Black Eyed Susan, was second choice behind Beautiful Gift. Her and Beautiful Gift had very similar trips, and both of them were just nowhere at the finish. Looking at her in the paddock, you could see why they thought she was a grass horse. She's not very big. She's pretty narrow. Like, as soon as I thought, like, she's got a ton of talent. And when I do my pre-race preview, I was like, she's the horse to beat in the Black Eyed Susan. I bet her. And then I was going to bet her. And then as soon as I saw her in the paddock, I was like, no way she gets a mile and an 8th on the dirt. Like, she just doesn't look like one of those horses. So 100%, this is the right spot for her. From a class perspective, if you just look at who she's run against, her class stacks up in here. I thought Navratilova was interesting. Like, she only run once around 2 turns, but her mother was a grade 1 winner at Keeneland, going a mile and a 16th. The horse I also thought was a little bit intriguing was Commander's Palace at 20 to 1. I thought she ran a pretty good second at Keeneland. She had a weird run in the stretch. She got bumped pretty significantly. And then she showed a completely different style next time out where she set just off the pace, and I thought ran really well. I could see her improving. And I think she's proven at this point she get a versatile trip. So she'll be on a lot of my tickets, from a weight perspective. I think I'll play Adventuring, but I'll play a few others, and Commander's Palace will be a horse I just think that's intriguing at what's a pretty big price.
I think you guys mentioned a lot of good horses. I'm going to throw out one other 20 to 1 shot, and that's Fairchild for Mark Cassie. The first 3 starts were all on turf, and she ran well in all of them. She came back for her first shot versus winners last time on the main track at Churchill, and she ended up finishing 3rd. But, I mean, it was first time versus winners. It was a little bit of a cutback in distance and first time on the dirt. So I like her getting back onto the grass. I just think for 20 to 1, I think she's worth a shot taking a look at because a lot of her figures are as good as other fillies in here.
That's a pretty funny race. We don't often go over a race where we cover how many did we mention? 9 of the 13?
I think does anyone like Sylvia Q? Anybody like Sylvia Q? Who wants to make a case for? We used to play this game. Say something nice about, all right? Pete, say something nice about Sylvia Q.
All right, let's see what I can say about Sylvia Q. Sylvia Q, first time on, well, not first time in a long time on turf. That turf debut, that figure was actually, matched up pretty well until the last couple of dirt figures. Maybe she's better on turf. Maybe she steps up her game. Maybe she can have an impact from the second flight in this race. I'm not really buying it, but I'm playing the game. That's my say something nice.
JK, say something nice about Bullseye Beauty.
Bullseye Beauty.
Only got beat 3/4 of length by Arm Candy, who you loved earlier.
There you go.
Something nice. She does have some early speed. 2 races back, she had red coated fractions in time from US, so that's something.
Philip, say something nice about Malloy.
I think the last race, I actually watched this race this day. She was super impressive. The one negative, I think sometimes this could be a tell on like why they run horses on the grass. At 7 furlongs, she showed a little bit more of a kick, and then she just was very one-paced on a 2-turn dirt race. That could be a little bit of a tell, like that they quicken and they flatten out, and they just don't really want the dirt. Sometimes in the shorter races, they can quicken and they don't have to sustain the run for as long. Like I think that, you guys talked about in your Oak show with like the Juddmonte horse from Florida that felt like at some point could transition to the dirt where they just make this move or they just run really flat through the stretch. But, pedigree would tell you, it's Uncle Mo. They can do anything. It's outwork. I mean, Uncle Mo's can do anything. Lemon Drop Kid obviously can handle the grass just fine.
That was great, guys. Don't you like that game? We should play that more often, right?
It's kind of fun. It's good and it's very useful in a spread race where you don't want to get beat and you have enough opinions elsewhere that you can get super creative. You start doing that every race though, and your ticket gets very expensive.
I feel like looking at this race all of a sudden now it's like we're forced now to single Maxfield.
I see what you're saying from a construction point of view. Where do you think you'll plant your flag, JK? Like what will be your most, important stance when you put a pick 6 together for this?
I think, and it doesn't have to be, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for singling. It doesn't have to be singles. I think for me, it's going to be Maxfield, obviously, with a little bit of Warriors Charge. And then also in the first 2-year-old race, the Debutante on the 1s and 2s and Wicked Halo. Because people spread in those races, because they see horses that win and they're not really paying attention to the figures being slow or if there's a bias that day or whatever. So that'll be basically where I'm kind of building my ticket around, or those 2 races being narrow in there. So yeah, those 2.
That's funny. You should mention the 2 Norm Cassie runners again, because I did get a question on Twitter from somebody, I think being a little cheeky, asking me if I was a member of the Norm Cassie fan club, and the answer is yes. We meet at Hooters. Professional wrestling is discussed, and what of it? I like the guy. What can I say?
That's hilarious. Professional wrestling is discussed.
We did have another question. We seem to get this question every time Philip is on about Medallion Racing and what makes them different as a partnership and how folks can get more information. I will lob that softball right back your way, Philip.
Yeah, I think if you watch the Belmont pod live stream, we tipped Stilo Talentoso, came back and won a couple days later. Yep. I think for us, we've talked about it on here, but it's really this high-level experience. She's a perfect example of that. This weekend we have Horologist who's going to run at Thistle Downs for $250,000. Try to get her back on form. She's a filly. She ran 4th last time.
Name, by the way.
Yeah, she ran 4th last time at Pimlico, and the negative is she basically needs to be outside of horses. She does not want to run if she's covered up. And she don't have to be on the lead, but she just needs to be outside. She can feel like she can intimidate a little bit as opposed to being intimidated. And she drew the rail. So Bravo's going to have to figure out some sort of trip. But it's a good spot for her. Like, we're hoping she's a Breeders' Cup horse down the road. She's, a multiple graded stakes winner, multiple grade 1 placed. We just want to try to put her in a winnable spot to kick the summer off. Next weekend we'll have a Stilo Talentoso running in the Princess Rooney at Gulfstream, which is also a win in your end race. So it's really just we're trying to kick off the summer. A Stilo Talentoso hopefully started a couple weeks ago at Belmont, but you can go to the website, can reach out to me on Twitter or whatever. But we're really excited, and I think even stuff like Vodka and Water. We have some of these smaller kind of one-off partnerships that are just, hey, we found a really good opportunity that we like. Those guys basically, if we get awarded the victory, they're going to have made money already, and in a 2.5 month period. And even without that, even if we're considered still second, they're almost completely out financially, and they've had a blast, and they're going to continue to have a blast all summer. I think that horse could be really interesting for Kentucky Downs. So if you ever see that horse on grass, he is 100% worth a bet. When we bought him, the first thing I thought was this horse could love the grass. The spots have opened up for us to run on dirt, but he's got a big grass hoof. He's not overly big. He's very athletic looking, and he just looks like he can handle anything. So if you do stable mail and that horse ever shows up on the grass, he is worth a bet, I think.
Good stuff. We gave JK the chance to give a cheap podcast plug before. Michelle, I think it's time for you to do the same. I know you guys are taking a deep breath before the super busy season at Del Mar, but folks interested in hearing more from you in podcast form over at the Owner's Box, what can they look forward to hearing over there?
Well, we change up the format a little bit for summer. Usually, like you said, we take a hiatus between Santa Anita and Del Mar, and we come back in Del Mar and we do them live at Del Mar. So we sometimes get our guests to come sit down with us, which we don't do it on video. So I guess it doesn't make that much of a difference who you're listening to. Except
Maybe we should.
Maybe. Here's my problem. We've talked about doing this before. Billy is kind of a space cadet. Already he
don't mince words
and everything. So I don't know how it would work out for him on camera for an hour. He might be hucking a loogie or I don't even know. Literally when we're in the room together too, we're making all kinds of weird faces at each other if our guest isn't there, so that we can know who gets to go next. But either way, we have a lot of fun when it comes to Del Mar. We always have locally based guests on. And like I said, a lot of times they're in person. So it's a whole different vibe for Del Mar, and it should be really fun again this year. So we'll be looking forward to kicking that up again for opening week.
So what you're saying is Billy Koch, your co-host, has a face made for radio. That's what you're saying.
Billy's pretty hot. I mean, he's got a face made for TV, but he's got a brain made for radio.
Wait a second. Radio's hard. You have to think more with radio. Come on.
No,
I know what you mean. I know.
You have to think about your face or what you're doing, though. Right?
You don't have to put on a shirt for radio.
Yeah, I'm not wearing pants right now. I mean, these things are okay.
We're partners with Billy on Vodka and Water and Estilo Talentoso, and he is absolutely he is a great time. And at Del Mar, he's even more fun.
Off the chain.
One more quick plug. I may talk to you, Michelle, because one thing that we really try to do is really leverage the resources of TaylorMade with Medallion. That's one thing I think that I don't get into it too much, because I want people to join Medallion because they love horse racing and they want this high level experience. But because it's TaylorMade, it allows us to have a financial model that's just more investor friendly, because TaylorMade gets to sell the horses. You don't have to, you're not having to pay your partnership plus a consignor plus all these extra things. So it just makes it a little bit better. But we're going to do a big live. We're taking 15 couples from our partnership out to Del Mar. We're going to have a big private dinner at Pacific Coast Grill right over the ocean.
Oh, we'll go to the track my favorite restaurant in the world. That is so cool.
Yeah.
Steve Goldberg, the owner, is a good friend. And that place is just the best.
I didn't realize I'd been there before. I didn't realize they had, I guess it's an upper layer.
Yeah.
It's you say right on the ocean. I mean, you could throw a rock and hit the ocean. It's great. We're going to do that. And then I've told you before, Pete, next year we're going to Ascot. So all of our Ascot, I got to make sure I say it right, not Kentucky.
You got to make sure you have a picnic in the car park.
Yeah.
I've
been before. I told my guys, I said, if you haven't drank champagne, you need to start drinking it now, because I drank more champagne in 4 days than I have in my previous 33 years.
Can I tell you my favorite thing? The first time I went to ask it, right? I like go up and obviously I'm a champagne drinker. And I get up, I'm like looking at the board. I'm like, shit, like 45 euro. That's a lot of money for a glass of champagne. Like I knew the prices were going to be high, but I was like, ooh, whatever. We're here. I'd like a champagne, please. Oh, they did not say, here is your glass, Michelle. They said, here's your bottle in a plastic bag filled with ice. I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. So instead, you get this plastic bag, they fill it with ice and the whole bottle, and you just walk around like a G. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. That, I tell everybody, and I know you've been, but you guys, JK, have you ever been?
He's not allowed.
No, the hat's not going to fit on my hair.
Zero chance JK ever goes to ask it.
What I would tell everybody is it's just so different. I think one of the biggest things that's different about it is
you don't know the races are going on.
No, sometimes I think you do more. Like the people, the general knowledge of the race goer at Ascot versus the general knowledge of the race goer at like the Derby or a big event, I feel like it's almost higher sometimes.
I never knew when the races were going on. Like if we were out, like not in like the Royal Enclosure, and we were like out in the Gen Pop, there's no like big screens or like announcements. Like there's no dude called to the post or anything. And it's on that ticker tape. So you don't even know like what race it is unless you're like really paying attention. So if you're like heavily drinking, I feel like you can lose the day.
I'll just throw it back to JK's shirt. And I clearly knew when all the races were going off and who was running, and I had a little bit of action. But I think that's a great thing, like for what we're trying to do is really, leverage. Like a lot of people are like, man, I'd love to go to Ascot, but I don't know where to stay. I don't know how to get tickets. I don't know where to go to get a hat and a morning coat and all those. Because it's a process. Well, some people are like, I want to go to Del Mar, or I want to go to Saratoga, but I don't know where I should stay. I don't know how to get tickets. So we really want to make our whole goal, like if you could just distill it down.
The Horse Racing Vacation Club.
No, we want to make horse ownership and the experience and going to the barn in the morning, all those things. All we want you to do is say yes, and then we do all the work.
Sounds pretty good.
You say yes, you want to show up, we're there. You want to go to Gulfstream and watch a Steel of Town Toso, you send me an email, you got tickets. You want to go to Ascot, you just tell me. You want to go to Del Mar, we just invoice you after the event, and everything's taken care of. And it just, because you deal with people that have, like, this is a huge thing for me, is just barriers to entry. Michelle, you're like, California is really good. They are very accommodating, but a lot of tracks are not very accommodating. Yeah. And everything becomes a hassle. And it's like, you got to go get licensed. Like, we're going to run the Grass is Blue in the Iowa Oaks. So it's like, we got to get licensed in New York. We got to be licensed in Florida. We got to be licensed in Iowa. We got to be licensed, wherever we run in Ohio. And for somebody that's coming into the game, that's just daunting. Yes. And then it's like, then not only do I got to call the track,
fingerprints, and then some places you have to go live. Some places you can do it online.
So we just say, hey, all those things, we just want you to say yes, and we'll do everything else, and we'll give you this unbelievable experience that we feel is unmatched. And part of that is creating this experience, for Ascot. I don't want to push sour grapes, but we were the underbidder on Quick Susie. So I'll give a big shout out to Aaron Bowman. Congrats. They were stronger than we were, and it paid off because she won the Queen Mary.
That was an awesome run. Good result for USA horses, USA owned and trained horses in that race.
And I think what you see too is, like, I think that the ownership for European horses in Europe, not just coming over, is even higher. Like, Oxley has Pretty Gorgeous. Like Bill Mathis had a horse in Lynn Green and John Green. They had a colt, I think, in the Coventry Macedo. Quick Susie, obviously, for Eclipse. So a lot of those people, and a lot of them are buying to come over here. But if you're buying a horse for Ascot, you're probably paying a premium, which everybody that buys racehorses, you're paying a premium anyways. But a lot of those horses that are Queen Mary, Coventry type horses, there's not a lot of spots for them to run in America, which, like, Eclipse is going to keep Quick Susie there for the Cheveley Park, which is makes complete sense. It's like, you come here, where are you going to run in a 5 furlong graded stake on the grass or a 6 furlong graded stake on the grass? They're just not out there. But I think what you have is there's this appetite from American owners to do that. And there's appetite, when you bring somebody into the game, they want to be at the Derby. They want to be at the Belm. They want to be in all these spots. And the reality is that's incredibly difficult.
Yep.
I don't care what it is. I mean, you have a maiden winner on Derby Day. It's like that's the toughest maiden of the whole year. That's where people want to be. So it's how can you cultivate this ownership experience for that? And I think that's what we've tried to do is say, we're going to bring you into we're going to be there Derby weekend. We're going to be at the Breeders' Cup. We're going to try to do this. And along the way, hopefully you have an unbelievable time in doing the Del Mar weekend, stuff like Ascot. Hopefully that pushes people along. So, our real goal is I want somebody to say, hey, I've grown out of Medallion, right? Like I want to be buying my own horses. I want to be doing this on my own. Medallion was great. I learned a lot, but I want to be the next, whoever it is, Larry Best or there's so many great owners. But I think part of it is that it's so hard to have the experience that you really want to have because you have to really know all the little details to make that happen. And that's a huge hurdle for a lot of people.
It's a great entry point and comes with a lot of perks and a shrewd business model. You can learn more, of course, over at the website, medallionracing.com. Is that the best way for people to reach out to you, Philip, who might want to get involved through the website, or is there a better way?
Yeah. If you just, I think my email's on the website. If we had issues where it's going to spam, which is not ideal.
You don't want to just give out your cell number? That's a Travis
And honestly, if you reach out to me on Twitter, that honest is like the easiest way because I shouldn't say it, but I'm on Twitter probably way too much. I don't tweet a lot. I just follow JK's tweets. Yeah, that's right. It's amazing how good of a, it's like I'm a huge soccer fan and like Euros going on right now. Like I'm in meetings and stuff. It's
France.
Yeah, I mean France is the obvious team. Like I'm a huge Chelsea fan.
Me too.
And which has been a great run the last 6 months. But, because of that, I would say I'm an England fan. There's 3 Chelsea guys on England. There's 3 Chelsea guys on Germany. But then obviously we have Conte who plays for France, and he's probably the best player in the world. So France feels like the logical team. Like their best is better than everyone else's best.
JK is so bored right now.
No, I'm not. Are you kidding me? I'm looking at my parlay ticket for with 3 Euro games on it. I'm very interested.
Oh my goodness! And of course, JK bets the chalk. So I mean, there it is. All right. Well, that Twitter for those listening to this at PShelton8. That's up on the archive on the YouTube channel, which you can come check out if you want to see the beautiful shirts that JK and I are wearing, and Michelle with no pants. Though you can't see that.
Can't see that. Sorry.
I think we're ready to send this thing home.
Off the airwaves for sure.
I think we're ready to send this thing home, team. Thank you again to Philip Shelton and our pals at Medallion Racing. I'm going to follow up with you offline, Philip, about, I don't know. I mean, I keep saying it's so hard to miss a weekend in Saratoga, but that Del Mar trip sounds too good to miss and get to hang out with this lot. Well, thank you, JK, one more time. We'll check you out on JK+1. Michelle, enjoy your couple of lighter working weeks, and we'll see you again.
I'll take you to a great dive bar in Del Mar.
I love it. Which one? The saddle bar or that one?
Oh, no. No, saddle bar is all right. I really like The Office.
Okay, I don't know it, but I like the sound of it, which is almost as important when it comes to these things. That's going to do it. We'll thank producer Craig for helping out. We'll thank Medallion Racing one more time. We'll thank everybody out there for watching, for listening, for making these shows so much fun to do. This show's been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.